He marked me in front of everyone, his friends watching, my body trembling, the air thick with power and humiliation. But what began as a cruel game soon spiraled into something darker. Something neither of us could escape. Don't blink, this story will leave you shaking. Subscribe, like, and comment if you're ready for the secrets behind He marked me in front of his friends. And I couldn't stop trembling. The city lights bled across the glass windows of the ballroom, glittering like spilled champagne. Laughter mingled with the soft rhythm of jazz and the faint clinking of crystal. To anyone watching, it looked like the perfect corporate celebration. Wealth, success, charm. But Yun stood by the far wall, his glass untouched, every muscle drawn tight beneath his immaculate suit. He wasn't supposed to be here. He hated events like this, crowded, loud, and filled with alphas who didn't know how to look without claiming. But as the company's best interpreter, Yun didn't have the luxury of choice. When the new CEO of Tanaka Systems returned from abroad, the event had been mandatory. A chance to network, his supervisor said. Yun had smiled and nodded even as the back of his neck prickled. His suppressant patch itched beneath his collar. He'd applied it twice just to be safe. No one here knew what he was, not even his department. And that's how it had to stay. In a corporate jungle full of ambition and scent-marked hierarchy, an exposed Omega was nothing but prey. He checked his watch. Just 30 more minutes, then he could leave. But the air shifted, faint, charged. The kind of stillness before a storm. Mr. Tanaka has arrived, someone whispered. Yun's gaze flicked toward the grand staircase. A tall man in a dark suit descended the steps, unhurried, as if the world bent itself to his pace. Even before he smiled, every alpha in the room subtly lowered their heads, instinctively acknowledging his rank. Riku Tanaka, the youngest CEO in the company's history. Wealthy, brilliant, utterly ruthless. He didn't look at anyone until his eyes landed on Yun. It was just a moment, a glance, but it felt like being caught mid-breath. Yun's pulse stumbled. The man's gaze was sharp, assessing, and faintly amused, like he'd already found something interesting. Yun dropped his eyes immediately. Don't react. Don't draw attention. He exhaled through his nose, steadying his heartbeat. Minutes passed. The crowd surged around the CEO, laughter and handshakes blooming. Yun moved toward the exit, trying to blend with the servers in black suits, until a hand brushed his sleeve. Leaving already? That voice. Smooth, low, and edged with quiet authority. Yun turned slowly. Riku stood there, holding a glass of scotch, his expression unreadable. Up close, he smelled faintly of smoke and winter spice. A scent that was restrained, expensive, and distinctly alpha. I was just stepping out for air, Yun managed, keeping his tone polite, professional. Then I'll join you. Yun's stomach twisted. Sir, you don't have to. I insist. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Outside, the night air was cold. The city sprawled beneath the balcony, its hum soft against the wind. Yun kept a careful distance, hands gripping the railing to stop them from trembling. Riku leaned beside him, casual, unhurried. For a moment, silence. Then, I heard my new interpreter is exceptional, he said. Fluent in 5 languages? 4, Yun corrected quietly. Riku's gaze slid to him. Modest. Yun didn't respond. He could feel the weight of that stare, tracing the curve of his throat, the line of his jaw. His pulse thudded against his skin, loud enough he was sure to betray him. Your name? Riku asked, though Yun knew he already knew it. Yun. Yun, Riku repeated, rolling it across his tongue like a taste he wanted to memorize. Where are you from? Here in Tokyo, sir. Riku's gaze dropped, pausing at Yun's collar. Strange. You don't smell like the others. The word struck like a blade. Yun froze. Excuse me? Riku's smile deepened, slow, predatory. You wear suppressants, don't you? His heartbeat skittered. I'm not sure what you mean. But Riku was already leaning closer, his voice a whisper against Yun's ear. Don't lie to an alpha, Yun. I can smell it, faintly beneath the chemicals. Something softer. Sweeter. Yun's breath caught. The patch on his neck burned as if his body knew it had been discovered. He stepped back sharply. That's inappropriate, Mr. Tanaka. I'm only making an observation. Then stop. The sudden steel in Yun's tone surprised them both. Riku's brows lifted, a flicker of interest sparking behind his calm facade. For the first time that night, his smirk faded into something else, curiosity and challenge. I see, he murmured. You're hiding it. How interesting. I'm working, Yun snapped quietly. My private life isn't open for discussion. Riku chuckled, low and genuine. You're trembling. Yun realized then that his hands were gripping the railing so tightly his knuckles had gone white. He forced himself to relax, but it was too late. The alpha had noticed. I'm not. But Riku's hand moved before he could finish, brushing lightly against the back of Yun's neck, right where the suppressant patch lay hidden beneath fabric. The touch was brief, electric. Yun's breath hitched, his body flared hot, reacting before his mind could catch up. His scent, faint, floral, uniquely Omega, slipped through the cracks of control. Riku inhaled sharply, eyes darkening. So it's true. Yun stumbled back, panic threading his voice. You can't, you shouldn't. Relax. Riku's tone dropped, rich and dangerous. I'm not going to expose you. Yet. Yet? Yun's voice trembled. Is this some kind of game to you? Riku smiled faintly. Everything is a game, Yun. The trick is knowing who's already playing. He turned, leaving the balcony bathed in silence and the faint scent of winter spice. Yun stood frozen, heart pounding, his body betraying every effort to stay calm. He pressed his hand against the side of his neck, feeling the heat throbbing beneath the patch. Every cell in his body screamed at him to run, but his legs wouldn't move. The scent he'd spent years hiding now hung in the air, fragile and undeniable. Inside the ballroom, laughter continued as if nothing had happened. But Yun knew everything had changed. Because when Riku Tanaka looked at him just now, it hadn't been like a man noticing an employee. It was like a predator finding something it didn't plan to let go of. And Yun couldn't stop trembling. The elevator glided upward in near silence, its mirrored walls reflecting Yun's stiff posture and pale face. He couldn't stop checking his reflection, the crisp black suit, the faint tremor in his hands, the carefully placed suppressant patch hidden beneath his collar. Everything about him screamed composure, yet his pulse refused to obey. He hadn't seen Riku since the party. He'd spent the night scrubbing every trace of scent from his skin, doubling up on suppressants and convincing himself it meant nothing. It was a misunderstanding, he told himself. He would apologize if needed, deliver the translated proposal and leave. A polite professional interaction. Nothing more. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime. Riku's penthouse was all glass and shadow, sleek, expensive and almost silent. Tokyo's skyline sprawled beyond the windows, glittering like constellations. The place smelled faintly of cedar and cold steel, the same scent Yun couldn't forget no matter how hard he tried. Right on time, came that low voice. Riku was lounging by the bar, jacket gone, sleeves rolled to his elbows. There was no trace of the polite smile he'd worn at the party, only quiet authority. The kind that filled the room without effort. Sir, Yun greeted, bowing slightly. You asked for the translated contract. Leave it there. Riku gestured lazily to the marble counter. Sit. Yun hesitated. I should get back. I have another. I said sit. The command wasn't loud, but it carried a weight that pressed straight into Yun's bones. His instincts faltered, Omega instincts whispering obedience before reason caught up. He sat carefully at the edge of the leather couch. Riku poured himself a drink. You've been avoiding me. I've been working. Working, Riku echoed. He walked over, stopping just close enough for Yun to smell the faint warmth of whiskey and alpha pheromones. You didn't even look at me during the meeting this morning. Yun's throat went dry. You're my superior. It's not my place. It's your place, Riku interrupted softly, to answer when I'm speaking to you. Yun looked up sharply, frustration sparking behind his eyes. With respect, sir, I don't appreciate being toyed with. If this isn't about the contract, then I'll leave. Riku's expression didn't change, but something dangerous flickered in his gaze. Not anger, exactly. Interest. Calculation. He leaned closer, voice dropping to a whisper. You think I'm toying with you? Yun stood, his voice trembling between anger and fear. I think you enjoy making people feel small. Especially people you can control. Riku's smile curved, sharp, elegant, cold. You're trembling again. Yun flinched back as Riku stepped into his space. Don't. I warned you last night, Yun, Riku murmured. You shouldn't lie to an alpha. The world seemed to tighten around them. Yun's breath hitched and the faint burn beneath his collar pulsed painfully. He reached for his throat, too late. Riku's fingers brushed the edge of the patch, peeling the fabric aside with slow, deliberate care. Don't. Yun's protest choked in his throat as the cool air hit his bare skin. The scent burst free. It was instant, dizzying, sweet, impossible to contain. The fragrance of suppressed omega heat filled the air, clashing with the cedar and smoke of Riku's presence. The reaction was chemical, primal. Yun's entire body reacted at once. A rush of warmth, a pulse that felt like fire under his skin. Riku inhaled sharply, his pupils narrowing. For a heartbeat he looked startled, then his control shattered. He stepped closer, cornering Yun against the wall. "You have no idea what you've been hiding," he said hoarsely. "Do you?" "Please," Yun's voice broke, his hands pressed against Riku's chest. "You're not thinking clearly." "I'm thinking too clearly." His tone was rough, threaded with something dangerously human. "You've been breathing the same air as me for months, pretending I wouldn't notice. Pretending you could hide." Riku's friends arrived then, 3 men in dark suits, laughing as they entered the penthouse. Their chatter froze at the sight before them. Riku didn't move away. His hand was still at Yun's neck, thumb resting against the faint rise of his pulse. "Riku," one of them started. "We didn't realize you had company." "Don't mind us," Riku said smoothly, though his voice carried a strange edge. "We were just talking." Yun's entire body shook. The scent of his heat hung heavy in the air, and the mocking glances from the others made it worse. One of them smirked. "Is that an Omega?" Yun's stomach twisted. "Cute," another drawled. "Didn't think you went for the quiet ones, Riku." Something snapped. Yun turned away, desperate to leave, but Riku caught his wrist and pulled him back sharply. And then it happened. Riku's head dipped. His teeth grazed Yun's neck, just enough to breach the surface of skin. It wasn't deep, not permanent, but enough to leave the faintest mark. A promise. A warning. A claim. The world went still. Yun froze, eyes wide, the sound of his heartbeat roaring in his ears. He could feel the pulse of Riku's breath against his skin, hot, steady, too close. Every nerve in his body screamed confusion, shame, and something far more dangerous than either. Behind them, the alphas exchanged knowing looks, murmuring something half-laughed and half-appalled. The sound echoed like glass breaking. Riku finally pulled back. His expression was unreadable. His hand lingered at Yun's throat for one trembling heartbeat before he stepped away. "Gentlemen," he said to his friends, tone back to business-like calm. "Enjoy the view. I'll join you in a moment." Yun stumbled back, one hand pressed to his neck. The mark throbbed faintly, tingling under his fingertips. He could still feel the phantom warmth of Riku's breath there. He wanted to scream, to slap him, to run. Instead, he whispered, "What did you just do?" Riku looked at him, unflinching. "You wanted to know if it was a game. And? Now you have your answer." Yun's vision blurred for a moment, too much adrenaline, too much humiliation. He turned toward the elevator without another word, ignoring the laughter behind him. Riku didn't stop him this time. He just watched, eyes dark, expression unreadable. The doors closed with a soft chime, cutting off the sound of their voices. Yun exhaled shakily, pressing a trembling hand against the small wound on his neck. The skin was warm, already reddening. He could still feel it, the mark. Not deep enough to bind, but deep enough to remember. For a long moment, Yun stood there, staring at his reflection in the mirrored wall. His lips trembled. That wasn't instinct. It wasn't chemistry. It was violation. A warning dressed as desire. And yet, when he closed his eyes, he could still feel it. The heat, the weight, the whisper of Riku's breath as he murmured his name like it meant something. Yun. He hated how his body shivered at the memory. Rain whispered against the windows of Yun's apartment, a thin, steady sound that filled the space's silence left behind. He hadn't slept in 2 nights. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the same thing. Riku's hand on his throat, the heat of his breath, the faint sting where teeth had grazed skin. He'd scrubbed the mark until it bled. It didn't help. The next morning, he typed a resignation letter with shaking hands. It was short, professional, almost sterile, an echo of control he no longer felt. When he dropped it at HR, the clerk barely looked up, nodding mechanically. Yun had felt a strange kind of relief walking out of the building. Like stepping off a cliff and convincing himself it was flying. But the relief didn't last. That night his phone rang. Once. Twice. Then again. He didn't answer. When the pounding started on his door, he knew. He froze in the middle of his living room, every instinct screaming, "Don't move." "Yun." The voice was quiet. Too quiet. "Open the door." He said nothing. Riku sighed on the other side, the sound tired. Real, even human. "I know you're there. You didn't even unplug the lights." Yun's fingers tightened around the edge of the couch. "Go away." Pause. Then softly, "I deserve that." He almost laughed. You deserve worse. Silence again. Then the sound of a hand sliding down the door, slow, deliberate. Just 5 minutes, Riku said. Then I'll go. Yun hesitated. He should have called the police. He should have shouted. But exhaustion pressed heavier than anger. He walked to the door, undoing the latch one click at a time. When the door opened, Riku stood there, drenched in rain, collar unbuttoned, eyes hollow from sleeplessness. The sight unsettled Yun more than the memory of the bite. Why are you here? Yun asked flatly. Riku's voice was low. Because I made a mistake. Yun laughed once, bitter. You call that a mistake? I lost control. You humiliated me. Yun's tone sharpened, breaking on the last word. In front of your friends? You made me a thing. Riku didn't move. The rain dripped from his hair onto the floor, darkening the wood between them. I know. Yun turned away, pacing toward the window. You don't get to know. You don't get to stand here like some man with guilt and expect it to mean anything. I'm not expecting forgiveness, Riku said quietly. I came because I can't stop thinking about it. About the look on your face when I... Don't? Riku stopped. His jaw tightened. You quit. You thought I'd stay? Yun shot back. After what you did? I thought you'd want to tell me to my face. Yun stared at him, disbelief cutting through the exhaustion. You really think this is about pride? You think I owe you confrontation? Riku exhaled, running a hand through his wet hair. No. I think you deserve the truth. Yun's voice was a whisper. The truth? Riku's eyes met his. I've done this before. The words hit like a stone thrown into still water. Yun didn't move. She was an Omega, Riku continued, voice rough. My bonded partner. Years ago. I marked her in heat. She didn't survive it. The world narrowed. I thought I could control it. The instincts, the power. I was wrong. I spent years convincing myself it wouldn't happen again, that I'd learned to be different. And then you walked into that room and He stopped, voice catching. You smelled like control. Like restraint. And it drove me mad. Yun closed his eyes. That's not an excuse. It's not. Then why are you telling me? Because I see what I did to you. And I hate it. Yun's throat tightened. You should. I do. The rain outside thickened, hitting glass in steady percussion. Riku stepped closer, slow enough to let Yun stop him if he wanted to. He didn't? Not at first. I can't change what I did, Riku said. But I can make sure no one ever uses it against you. My friends won't speak of it. I've already handled that. You handled it? Yun snapped. You caused it. Riku flinched as if struck. I'm the one who can't walk into that office again. I'm the one who has to wear scarves to hide what you did. Yun's voice cracked, rage and humiliation bleeding through. You want to fix it? You can't. Riku swallowed hard. I know. The silence that followed was raw, heavy, full of unsaid things. The scent in the room had shifted, not dominance, not control, but something quieter. Guilt. Yun sank onto the couch, the weight of exhaustion dragging him down. Why are you really here, Riku? He looked at him then, not the CEO and not the Alpha but the man behind both masks. Because I can't undo it. But I need you to know that it wasn't about power. It was about something I didn't understand until it was too late. Yun stared at the floor. And what's that? Riku's voice broke. Wanting you. The words hung there, sharp as glass. Yun felt them sink under his skin, unwanted, undeniable. He should have thrown him out. Should have shouted. But instead he whispered, You don't get to want me after you hurt me. Riku nodded slowly. You're right. And then, without another word, he turned to leave. But just before stepping through the door he said softly, You once asked if this was a game. It isn't anymore. The door closed behind him and Yun was alone again. He sat there long after the rain faded, staring at the empty doorway. His chest ached, and not just from anger. Somewhere deep inside, beneath all the fear and resentment, something else stirred, something he didn't want to name. He pressed a trembling hand to the mark on his neck. The skin had healed, but the phantom sensation remained, pulsing faintly under his fingertips. He told himself it was only memory. Only trauma. Only guilt. But when he finally fell asleep on the couch, he dreamed of Riku's voice, low, steady, full of regret, whispering his name as though it still meant something. And Yun woke up with tears drying on his face and the quiet, unbearable thought that maybe the real scar wasn't on his skin at all. Morning light spilled through the blinds, pale and unfamiliar. Yun woke to the sound of rainwater dripping from the eaves, the city still half asleep. His head throbbed faintly, a dull echo of sleepless nights. The apartment felt too quiet, like it was waiting. He deleted Riku's number, blocked every channel of contact, yet the man's voice lived in the corners of his mind. It isn't a game anymore. Yun rose, poured water into a mug and watched the steam fade. His resignation had been processed. A final paycheck sat unread in his inbox. He should have felt free. Instead, a weight clung to him. Unfinished words, unshed anger, something that refused to dissolve. When the doorbell rang, he almost didn't move. But the second ring came softer, almost hesitant. Yun opened the door. Riku stood there, no longer immaculate. The expensive suits were gone. In their place, a simple coat, damp at the cuffs. He looked smaller somehow, as if the sharp edges of power had dulled overnight. "I know you don't want to see me," Riku said quietly. "But there are things I need to return." He held out a plain folder, the company ID, Yun's final documents. Yun took it without meeting his eyes. "You could have mailed it." "I could have," Riku agreed. "But then I wouldn't have said what I came to say." Yun's stomach tightened. "Say it then." Riku exhaled slowly, searching for words instead of commanding them. "That night I crossed a line I swore I never would. I hurt you. I humiliated you. No explanation can erase that. But you deserve to hear that I understand exactly what I did." Yun stayed silent, his fingers tightening around the folder. "I've spent the last week thinking about control," Riku went on. "How I use it to protect, to build, to hide. With you it became something ugly. I saw the fear in your eyes and I used it anyway." He looked down. "That's on me." The honesty in his tone unsettled Yun more than arrogance ever had. He wanted to hate him. It would have been easier. But the man standing in front of him was not the one from the penthouse. He looked stripped of armor, raw. "Why now?" Yun asked, voice barely above a whisper. "Because guilt isn't the same as change," Riku said. "I needed to show you that I'm trying to be different, even if you never forgive me." Yun hesitated, the memory of that night flickering. Fear, heat, confusion. "You marked me in front of people," he said, the words trembling. "Do you even understand what that means?" "I do," Riku said. "It means I branded you with shame that wasn't yours to carry. And I can't undo it, but I can make sure the world forgets. I've cleared your record, your name. No one will speak of it again." Yun let out a hollow laugh. "You think erasing the memory makes it better?" "No," Riku admitted. "But it's a start." The rain outside softened into mist. Yun turned away, crossing to the window. His reflection stared back, eyes tired, neck still faintly scarred. "I thought leaving would make it easier," he said. "But I keep thinking about that night. About the way you looked afterward, like you hated yourself more than I ever could." Riku's voice was low. "I did." "Good," Yun said, though it came out softer than intended. They stood in silence. Somewhere below, traffic began to hum, ordinary life resuming as if nothing had happened. Yun drew a slow breath. "You said you came to return something. Is that all?" Riku shook his head. "No. I came to give you a choice." He reached into his coat and placed a small envelope on the table. Inside was a letter, handwritten, the strokes precise yet uneven. "It's my resignation," he said. "I've stepped down. I shouldn't lead a company if I can't lead myself." Yun looked up sharply. "You quit?" Riku nodded. "The board accepted it this morning. I told them I needed time to rebuild privately. Maybe learn what it means to be human again." For a long moment Yun couldn't speak. The gesture was too large, too impossible to process. "Why tell me?" "Because you're the only person who ever looked at me and didn't see power first," Riku said. "You saw the man underneath, and you were right to be afraid of him." Yun felt something inside him loosen, painfully slow. "So what now?" Riku's gaze softened. "Now you decide if you ever want to see me again. If you don't, I'll disappear from your life completely. No calls, no messages. You'll never hear my name." The words hung between them like a drawn breath. Yun's instinct screamed to end it, to close the door, to bury every memory. But another part of him, the quiet one that still trembled when he thought of Riku's remorse, hesitated. He stepped closer. The scent in the room was different this time. No dominance, no power. Just rain, cedar, and regret. "Why me?" Yun asked finally. "Out of everyone you could have chosen to destroy." Riku met his gaze. "Because you made me want to be better." The simplicity of it broke something open. Yun's throat tightened. He wanted to shout, to tell him that wanting wasn't enough, that change didn't erase pain, but the words tangled behind his ribs. All he could manage was, "If I let you stay in my life, it won't be as an alpha claiming an omega." Riku nodded. Understood. It'll be as two people trying to fix what's broken. I'll take that, Riku said quietly. If you ever decide it's possible. Yun studied him for a long time, then exhaled. I don't know if I can forgive you. But I believe you mean what you're saying. That's all I hoped for. He turned to leave, pausing at the doorway. The morning light caught on the faint mark at Yun's neck, and his eyes darkened, not with desire but with sorrow. I'm sorry, Yun, he said one last time. Truly. When the door closed, the apartment felt lighter. Yun sank onto the couch, the letter still in his hands. The ink had smudged slightly from rain. He unfolded it, reading the final line again and again. When you tremble now, let it be from your own strength, not my shadow. Outside the rain stopped. A thin line of sunlight broke through the clouds, spilling across the floorboards. Yun pressed his fingers to the healed mark on his neck. The skin no longer burned. It was just skin, his and his alone. He whispered to the empty room, I'm free. And for the first time in weeks, his hands were steady.